So, my topic is endangered species. The biosphere is where all life exists, which sounds pretty important. Well, in the space of a few centuries, us humans have swung a wrecking ball through it, and the effects of our actions and carelessness have consequences. We also tend to ignore anything that is unknown to us because today's society likes to ignore anything that's not within our comfort zone and natural routine. So, the more we think of the earth as a place for resources, a trash can for our waste, and only value the species that have something to provide to us, then we will continue on the path we have been on for a while now, and steadily unpick the fabric of life until there is nothing there. Scientists believe we are in the middle of a sixth mass extinction. This graph shows the rate of extinction in a few animals from 1500 to 2014. What we are seeing on Earth has not been seen for the last 65 million years. When one animal population changes or becomes extinct, all other parts of the ecosystem are affected as the rate of predator versus prey will change. It is estimated that about 1 out of every million species are being lost every year. So, how do all these species become extinct? Well, there are many different reasons, and they all affect species differently. As the graph shows, the most common reason for species becoming endangered or threatened is due to urbanization or destruction of habitat. The habitat is where all of their basic life needs are. Habitats have to be in balance to support wildlife, so if a certain species of plants or animals is removed from a community, that community will not survive. Doesn't matter how big or small the plant or animal is, they all contribute to keeping the ecosystem in a constant balance. Another important area to keeping species alive and healthy is the carrying capacity of their environment. The carrying capacity is a number of animals the habitat can support all year long without damaging the animals or habitat, but it can vary from year to year and can be changed by seasons or humans. Just as I said Monday during presentations, the world doesn't grow with us, we outgrow the world. And pretty much that's what we're doing. 8% of vertebrate species have been labeled as endangered due to the effects of rapid urban development, and that number will continue to rise with new urban expansion and growth. In 2007, the United Nations revealed that at least 50% of the world's population is living in cities. By 2030, that number will jump to 60%, with nearly 2 billion new city residents, many migrating from rural areas. According to the report, humans are building the equivalent of a city the size of Vancouver every week. My parents have always taught me to never get mad when animals are in the road or when a person gets bit by a shark and so on because we are in their natural territory, so we have to respect that. An invasive species is one that has been brought into an environment where it doesn't live naturally and where it causes harm to the local environment, economy, or human health. They threaten biodiversity by causing disease, acting as predators or parasites, acting as competitors, altering habitat, and hybridizing with local species. Some say invasive species may be the top cause of extinction in island ecosystems. Every species can be impacted by pesticides through the direct or indirect application, such as pesticide drift, secondary poisoning, runoff into local water bodies, or groundwater contamination. It is possible that some animals can be sprayed directly. Others consume plants or prey they have been exposed to pesticides. In birds, for example, exposure to certain pesticides can impede singing ability, making it difficult to attract mates and reproduce. Pesticides can also affect birds' ability to care for their offspring, causing their young to die. Pesticides are very harmful to us, insects and plants, and without insects we lose pollination. And without pollination, we lose most of our food sources. And when we ingest food sources infected with some of these harsh chemicals, we experience health problems and see defects in children. Humans are obviously affected by pollution, as seen by disease like asthma or cancer, but animals are a victim to its effects too. Many species have experienced pollution events that have caused death or a threat to their habitat. Some species have been pushed to extinction. Destruction of the ozone, global warming conditions, and the destruction of habitat from solid waste facilities all impact animals. I could talk for a few hours about all these different types of pollution and their effect on living species, but the main ones are synthetic chemicals like the ones used in pesticides, oil spills, toxic waste and metals, acid rain, and all the types of trash we throw away daily. The pollution I just talked about has an effect on climate change as well. 99.8% of all endangered species are sensitive to climate change, yet federal agencies consider climate change for 64% of the species. Climate change could cause a quarter of land animals, bird life, and plants to become extinct. Intense droughts, storms, heat waves, rising sea levels, melting glaciers, and warming oceans can directly harm species and destroy the places they live. Although it is thought that no species has yet become extinct directly because of climate change, many migratory and non-migratory species are expected to become extinct in the near future. This one was a hard one. Pictures were a little rough, so if you want to look up what it actually looks like, you can do that on your own, but I didn't want to post those pictures on here with somebody not wanting to see them because they're pretty rough. But poaching is a large threat to species because it gives a source of income to families and certain economies. Families do everything they can to support their family, so it's pretty hard for them to stop doing that. Poaching is illegal in all species that is labeled threatened and endangered. However, people still break these laws and regulations about as much as we go over the speed limit, which is pretty much every day. Certain species are going extinct 1,000 times faster because of this. Sea turtles are just one example of a species that is suffering. Over the last 200 years, they have been sought out by humans from being slaughtered for eggs, meat, skin, and shells. Because of us, they now suffer from poaching and overexploitation. They are also facing habitat destruction and accidental capture and fishing gear. Climate change also has an impact on turtle nesting sites because it alters sand temperature, which then affects the gender of the hatchlings. Now nearly all species of sea turtles are endangered. The 3 species labeled critically endangered are the hawksbill, the green, and the loggerhead. Squirt and crush are green sea turtles. Very sad. Sea turtles face many challenges in nature alone. They travel between land and sea and swim thousands of miles during their life. They wait decades to reproduce, returning to the same beach they were born to lay their eggs. Females can lay hundreds of eggs, yet only few will survive the first year of life. Additionally, they face even more threats because of us humans, examples being bycatching, commercial fishing gear, illegal trade, consumption, and climate change. And this picture in this graph shows that. Bycatch is a worldwide issue and is usually by accident. What happens is the sea turtles accidentally get caught in shrimp nets, on hooks, and in fishing gill nets. Sea turtles have to go to the surface to breathe, so therefore many drown. This is the greatest threat to sea turtles, and the threat is increasing as fishing activity expands. The next biggest threat to sea turtles is overharvesting and illegal trade. Sadly, turtle meat and eggs are a source of food and income for many people around the world. Turtles continue to be harvested for human consumption and trade of their parts. Some kill them for medicine and even religious ceremonies. International trade of all turtle species and their parts are prohibited under CITES, which is a global agreement among governments to regulate or ban international trade in species under any threat. Habitat loss also has a major effect on sea turtles because they are dependent on nesting, and uncontrolled coastal development, vehicle traffic on beaches, and other human activities have destroyed or disturbed nesting beaches all around the world. Many don't think their actions on the beach affect habitats elsewhere, but that is false. Activities on shore, such as clearing of land, beach restoration projects, sand filling, and nutrient runoff from agriculture, destroy turtle feeding grounds such as coral reefs and seagrass beds. Climate change is also very important because every stage of a sea turtle's life is affected by environmental conditions, like the temperature. Unusual warm temperatures change the normal numbers of male hatchlings because the sex of the hatchling is determined by the temperature of the sand. Warmer sea surface temperatures also lead to the loss of important foraging grounds. An increasing sea level rise, which can destroy nesting beaches and damage their nests. I'm sorry you can't really see some of these graphs and pictures because of me. I'm in the way. Sorry. And lastly, pollution. A lot of the time, sea turtles mistake floating plastic for jellyfish and choke when they try to eat it, often resulting in death, lost, or discarded fishing gear. Entangle sea turtles and can drown them or make them unable to feed or swim. Trash on beaches can trap hatchlings and make them unable to reach the ocean. Many organizations are now working with fisheries to switch to more turtle-friendly fishing hooks called circle hooks, which is at the top left. These hooks not only help the threat to sea turtles, but also dolphins, sharks, and many more marine animals that suffer from bycatch. Some major developments in fishing gear include turtle excluder devices and fishing nets, which is at the bottom left, and that also shows how it works. Lights in the gill nets, which is at the top right, and tracking of turtle movements using satellites to prevent interactions between fisheries and turtles to save them from possibly getting caught in fishing gear. And some data collected by these satellites is at the bottom. And these pictures are just showing some of the new products that are environmentally friendly and biodegradable. I've made my family start getting some of this stuff. You should too. It is a little more expensive, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. So to conclude my presentation, I hope I've made you realize how important it is we think about how the effect of our actions on the environment. And maybe you're wondering, well, how can I help such a worldwide problem? Well, there's a lot. But right now is to change daily habits that you know are bad for the environment. And when you do these things, it helps your local surroundings, which have an effect on other surroundings. And hopefully you can make other people do it too. And now my video. Let's see if it works.